This episode of the Wedding Film School Show is brought to you by MusicBed, the best music licensing platform for wedding filmmakers. Head over to themusicbed.com and enter our code WFS on checkout to get a free month on your annual wedding subscription. Now, on to the show.
If you had all the money in the world, like, what would you be doing? I was like, honestly, I would shoot weddings with my wife. It was an incredible feeling.
It's not that you can't make money or you can't make good work. It's that you won't enjoy it.
Right, exactly.
And you have to have anchoring principle in your life to always draw you back to shore.
You know, we're just recently experiencing the planners being the middleman messenger. And we're really adamant about jumping on calls with these couples.
How many times have you worked with someone and you're like, have you kissed before?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I hate that. I'm so surprised by that every time.
You're married, you both work in the same company, and you have kids.
I want to say just right off the bat, like we don't have it all figured out. It's a lot of work.
Toddlers is what makes
Toddlers, they're not in school yet.
It's actually a business challenge. Every time I book an event, I'm going to spend X $100 on childcare. Like, you factor that into your pricing. That better reflect somewhere in what you're selling, or you're just taking a net loss. Hey guys, welcome to the Wedding Film School Show. So excited about our guests today. We have Max and Courtney from The Smiths here, and I'm really excited because I've gotten to know you guys over the last couple of years. Do you remember our first time hanging out, guys?
I do. Yeah. It was on the well, I met you at Vision Quest, but then we got to really know each other. Tubing in a river.
Tubing in a river and just
the beginning of our love.
Talking life, talking about all this stuff. So I kind of knew, like, at that point, guys, I was like, they're going to be really good filmmakers, right? Like, this is like legit people who they have staying power. And I remember, like, talking to you about your journey, and you were telling me about, like, how far in were you at that point? That was like, what, 2021?
Started.
We had just started. It was like coming up on the end of our first year, I think. Yeah, that was like September 2021 was that Vision Quest. So we were on the fall side of our first year full time.
I want to say you guys were like, you kind of were like pretty green, and you were like talking about like, oh yeah, we did this thing, and like I done this course, you done every course and done everything, and it like, but also you're like, and we like, oh yeah, we did like 30 weddings or some crazy amount, and I was like, you did 30 weddings in your first year? And that's when I was like, okay, there's something here. And so I was like, I'm going to watch them. I want to get to know these people. And so I'm so glad and proud of you guys. Not to say I had literally anything to do with it, because but that being said, I'm just proud of you guys, because I feel like having people who you can just see their development and growth, and like, you probably were that day similar to who you are today. You're not, but you've just started to reap the rewards of that. So that's so cool. So why don't you guys give the viewers just a little bit of background about who you guys are as filmmakers, and maybe how would you describe your films, guys?
Yeah. We're Max and Courtney. We started and, going full time in January 2021. And it kind of started honestly with Wedding Film School. Like Craig Adams days and Matt Johnson days. I mean, not to say that Matt Johnson is done or anything, but like those are the YouTube videos that like was so much like self-teaching and stuff. And so, we fell in love with it like back in 2015, technically speaking, but I was worship pastor. She was youth pastor. We stepped away from that in 2021 to do this full time. We just felt really called to do it. And it's funny when you ask like what kind of films we make. They've definitely evolved from like early 2021 to where they are now, because we were super inspired along the way by others, and like and how they were doing their films, because we were I think our films were really vanilla in early 2021, and they were good and everything, but it's just we weren't doing anything super spectacular. But I think that like Bottle Brush, A Little Long Distance, Sculpting of Time, like all of our favorites, we kind of just were taking little bits of inspiration from all of them. And so our films have definitely taken the turn into a very story-driven style now. where we capture our couples outside of the wedding day, and it's called story sessions. I can't take full credit for that. Chris Mai from Good Coast Studios.
You're the inventor of that. You're the first person ever to do that.
Right. No way. But
we just knew we wanted to implement those into our films.
Yeah.
To make it a little more unique and more particular to the couple.
Yeah. So combining that with like a really funky, upbeat vibe to some of our films, this is kind of where they are now. Like storytelling that has a really fun vibe, and any wedding or like couples that are super left field or non-traditional, those are the ones that we're most attracted to. And
exactly.
But yeah, so here we are and on the podcast with you, and it's super cool, and we're excited to be here.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, the amount of people, because you talked about development essentially, like I often go back and watch. This morning, me and one of my guys, Caleb, we were like, oh, what venue have we worked the most at, right? And so we did 3 venues. We did what's funny is it was 40, 40, 42 between these 3 venues. So it was really close. So I think the jury's still out on that one because we couldn't mislabel stuff. But anyway, I was like, oh, I want to watch this first one that we did at this venue that we work at a lot. And I was like, this film is terrible. But then I remember, I get to the end and I'm like, yeah, but I can see the bones of what we ended up doing early on. And so I think it's really interesting about people is, do you think people kind of rush to define themselves a little too early? Or do you think there's value into just that kind of making something that is vanilla, but it's done, and you're not maybe putting pressure on every project to be the project?
Yeah,
I think we did.
You think we rushed?
I think we rushed when we first started. We were just okay, this is who we think we want to be. This is who we are. We're aiming for a more we just want really pretty, well done wedding films. But then the summer during 2021, I believe, or 2020, I don't know.
2021.
Time is nothing to me.
You have children, so.
Yeah. One summer though, we were sitting in our backyard and we're just who are we? We're parents, we're chaotic. Our brand that we have now isn't speaking at all to that.
And we had then.
Yeah.
We were Kenneth Kevin Media before we were the Smiths.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think we finally took the time to decide who we wanted to be and what we wanted to do, the couples that we wanted. And that took a little time.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering if you can even do that, though, if you don't make meh work for a season.
Well, not only that, but I'd like to speak into that because, because my answer is I think it's okay to rush into some of it because you have to get your feet wet in certain styles and what's fun to you, what's not fun. We had to try out the weddings and the couples that were funky, but we also had to try out the luxury weddings. And we have done $500,000 weddings, and we've also done the kind of lower and we did a couple luxury weddings, honestly, maybe 2, but those 2 with the super high end planners, I was I think we both agreed frankly for us personally, we didn't like it because it was so there was so little interaction with the couple and so and our job as storytellers, it was so hard to do that when our interaction and knowing who they were was so minimal. And not only that, but we have a high-end planner telling us how to do our job the whole time. And I get it, that is for some people love that, but for us, we discovered maybe that's not for us. But in terms of the actual film style, I think when we were taking inspiration from different people and different styles and stuff, I think it was good for us to explore those and be oh, I like this, or no, I don't like that. And I think the tipping point was at Vision Quest, because that was our first time being surrounded by so many different filmmakers, and we were kind of awakened to oh, there's not just the heavy hitters Sculpting a Time or Henry or Little Long Distance. There's all these people that are in similar stages as us, and they're making incredible work. Wow, these people need to be these people need to be up on that stage right now. It was insane, the amount of talent in that room. But we were moved. I remember watching Josh from Little Long Distance. He was showing some of his work, and I was just getting moved and just crying at this thing. I never cry at wedding films. I've watched so many, I've made so many. I'm this shouldn't do this, but it's doing it to me. And then combining that with bottle brushes, funky stuff. I was there was just certain things that we were being awakened to, that were wow, this is very much like I'm so drawn to this because it's resonating with me so much in terms of that funky personality, but also this in-depth, like heart-wrenching part of these films.
And
And
it was cool that it was like truly them too.
Yeah.
Like A Little Long Distance is sold out to what he delivers, and Bottle Brush, they're so sold out to who, like what they deliver and their brand and everything. We didn't have that confidence at that point.
Well,
Yeah.
I think there's a component here that is important, which is like that the crossroads between being inspired, you know, and you know the need. Like I hear people say never compare yourself, and sometimes I say it too, and I'm like, that's a sloppy language. I don't think you should never compare yourself. I think you should.
Yes.
I think you should like you should know how you measure up. Like you should be like, am I as good as this person?
Right.
I think that's important, but it can be very unhealthy. It can be, and also just copying people is not satisfying creatively too.
Right.
But I think like everyone, I think like imagine social media didn't exist, and imagine you were at art school, right? And like you would be like, oh, I'm a disciple of Leonardo. I'm a disciple of there are people who are masters who are speaking in modalities and making things that will teach you new ways to tell stories.
Mm.
And I always look at it and go like, I love when I see a filmmaker. First of all, I agree. Like you experiment with a lot of things, see what's for you, right? And I see this so much, guys. Like people saying, oh, you want to make good wedding films? Don't watch wedding films.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's the worst advice. Like
seriously.
now I will say, you want to make good wedding films? Don't only watch wedding films.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely not. Like watch real cinematography where they have all the time to set the shot up and you know and can actually think. That's good.
Yeah.
But I also think like watching, you guys referenced a bunch of filmmakers that are really good, and I think at the end of the day, like it's really, 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 really important to be inspired in this industry because like I'm sure have you guys hit the point yet when you're like as filmmakers where the similarity is so glaring to you that you can no longer disseminate between one event or the other, or do you still remember like people's names?
I remember people's names pretty well. Like
We're really good at that.
I mean, we actually have this discussion at least like 10 times a year. We're like, hey, what was your favorite like wedding and then wedding film that we did last year? And like those are two different things. Like what wedding is your favorite and then which film was your favorite? And we love talking about that because like that is I think I would argue it's our favorite part of this business is like the memories that we get to make with these people because we're spending more than just a wedding day with them, right? We're hanging out with them during these story sessions. And like there's and you actually reviewed one of them one time, but LaSalle and Nico. Film we did, and it's one of our absolute favorites, and it's my favorite story because like their journey of having this kid, and the part of their lives.
That was the one they bought the house.
They had a home,
They
yeah,
had
and
a
a little
home or something.
Yeah,
boy.
Elliot, the little boy, and like a lot of the film revolved around that, and like we were just invited into that part of their lives, but like I'll always remember them. I'll always remember like the connection we had because we didn't just film them; we laughed with them, we had ice cream with them, like, and like that's what we do. Like we build these relationships, and no, like they're not sustainable relationships realistically. That it wouldn't be realistic to have like a million different relationships with all these couples, but we have these connections that are so memorable, and I think it's our favorite part of what we do.
I can't really disseminate that sometimes in my brain of like what makes a wedding stand out in my head. Like why is it some couples I remember vividly, and like literally there are times where I walk into the edit bay and I go, did I shoot this one? Like it literally happens to me, like where I'm like, or like where I walk up and I go like this, I'm like talking to my second shooter, I'm like, okay, so this is and I'm like I'm comfortable with that. That's pretty much the norm for us is like I just show up and shoot. But even couples who I like do a lot of like the pre stuff with, as like the longer you do this, I think the more you kind of realize like some sacrifices, or at least I think, I could be wrong. But I've seen throughout a lot of other people and myself that the more you are going up in the ranks, especially with price, the less you're able to maybe form some of these personal relationships and personal connections. As artists, I think this is a tension everybody feels. Because everybody wants to make more money. Everybody wants to have those kind of, maybe those portfolio pieces, that kind of stuff. How do you guys feel like the tension between like intimacy, connection, and your art, and maybe like that side of the business where, like you mentioned, the planners, like, is that something that like you would say like, no, that's not ever for us? Or how do you guys wrestle with that and reconcile and make those kind of choices?
We're only facing this, I feel like, in this past year, but like, we're just recently experiencing the planners being the middleman kind of messenger in these inquiries, and like they just want to go right to it, and we're really adamant about jumping on calls with these couples. I know that like they'll get a yes, like, and I know that I'm in this planner's recommendation list and like referral list, and like that the people trust the planner, but that's beyond the point for me. And like, so I do push it hard with them and say like, hey, is there any way we can at least just talk to them, get to know them first? Because there are other variables and factors that need to kind of align for it to work, like that they will work well with our brand and how we film and how we shoot, because we are at least in the Michigan market, we are a very different type of storyteller, and we're not for everyone. And just because a planner might refer us to someone, usually planners don't have all the details of videography to relay. And so I push to make sure that we're getting that relationship. Like I do fight kind of hard, regardless of how important this planner is. I will, because I left my 9 to 5 so I could be my own boss, not so someone else could boss me. As much as these people will make us money, there is a line of like integrity I like to keep. And a part of that is like, I'm going to stay true to my brand and how and who we want to work with, no matter how much money the person. And if that planner doesn't want to respect that, that's not a relationship I want anyways, frankly. Well, and that matters to me personally.
Yeah,
so.
and I've found, by the way, and if you're like hearing this, like just my experiences, like I have 3 brands, right? I have Huxley Film is our like luxury boutique product,
right?
And when a planner sees that product, they will call us, because it's pretty much a planner exclusive brand. We actually won't work with couples that don't have planners, pretty much. But we will say to them, is this right for them? Because we don't need, like, if they want that film, I need to have buy-in. Mm-hmm. If they don't want that film, they should buy Stop Go Love, which is our other team product. That person we will just show up, and that's actually the delineating line cost-wise. Is my time thinking about your couple and actually caring.
Yeah.
Like it's, so you're spending money on my heart and my soul. You're not spending money on a better film. You're spending money because both films are good.
Yep.
Excellent.
Right.
One of them is we show up and we're documentarians. The other one is I'm storyteller. And if you want to pay for storytelling, that's great. If they don't care about it, they don't want a unique film. They just want a film. And so I think there's something to that. And I have found, by the way, guys, that like, just so you know, I don't personally think you have to draw that line, but I do think you need to educate wedding planners. And I think we don't talk about that enough in the industry, is like the fact that wedding planners don't know. And a lot of them think they're helping their couple, and they think you're a photographer.
Yeah.
Right.
And so if you say to them, like, here's why this will make your client happier if I do X, here's why I need to talk to them. Like, the amount of times I've had planners sell things for me, and then the couple goes, what is this? When we do the deliverable, it's a lot. Like, where the couple's like, where they just like, because some planners will send me 7 contracts. They're like, yeah, we don't book you for these 7 events. And like, we've spent so much time educating them now. That's like the number one thing I spend time on, is like, I have emails we send out all the planners. We explain our packages. We explain our deliverables. We explain our processes. We get them on sales calls before the season. Like, I have found if you educate planners, they will love it. And if you're listening to this, something to consider. Like, I do think you need to change. And I think that's the big thing, is like,
Sure.
you do need to maybe adjust how you get in front of the couple. But if you explain to them that you're not just wasting the couple's time, typically
Right.
I find that they let you, and I find it works good. So I want to talk to you guys about something that's just practical filmmaking, because it's something you guys do. You talk about your story sessions, right? Definitely something like the first film I ever made was a story session. That's the first film I ever got paid to make. We made it with our couple. They were like a long distance couple, and so they wanted to recreate being at the airport. And so like we did like a save the date for them, and we did this whole storytelling thing. Very first film we made, got featured on Style Me Pretty.
Nice.
Wow.
Holy crap.
We were like, oh wow, this is easy. Like
This is easy.
you know, but so we really wanted to make those films 12 years ago. And then we would try to sell them and no one would buy them. So we kind of bailed on it because I was like, screw it. Like nobody will buy this thing. I'm kind of jealous of you guys because like more people have done it and I think the market's more educated. How do you guys go about like coaching up these couples to create those? Obviously some are better than others, but like I think like I'm always fascinated by how you build that into your process.
Well, it all happens on the discovery call, and it's a huge part of our branding now. So back then when we were Academy Media, like it wasn't really known until like you talked to us on the discovery call. But if you go to our website now, like, and you go to like the experience page of like our process, it's like the first thing you see is like enter the story session, and we talk a little bit about it. But the biggest part of it where it's just a good sell is when we're jumping on calls with our couples and we're getting a chance to really explain that, hey, like we are a little different. Have you guys watched our films? And chances are usually yes, because most of our leads are through Instagram. And so we kind of dive into like, well, we do the story sessions where we love to, you know, capture you in your element outside the wedding day, because we're storytellers. And I'm saying this to the couple. This is almost verbatim what I do say usually, but we're storytellers, and your wedding day is just a wedding day. It's a great day, but it's just one day. And the day is about you, and we are telling your story. So how can we do that better than just beyond the wedding day? So we love to capture you in your element, doing something you love. Maybe it's with other people. It doesn't have to be just you two. It could be like we've had couples that are just like, I want to have like our friends and family over and play board games and have some drinks and just hang out. Like, cool, I'll capture that. And I tell my couples, like, just to let you know, like there are no rules to how these story sessions will go. Like if you name it, we'll do it. If you want to order a pizza and watch Netflix and sit on your couch, like we'll literally capture that, and you guys just hanging out. And that's like, there are no rules. And I think that excites a lot of couples, because most of these couples have watched a lot of wedding films. Like they've been like, you know, doing their research, and if they haven't, I'll educate them in that. Like, just let you know, like we've watched hundreds of these films, and most of them at a certain point become templatized. They kind of fit a similar vibe. They get a little vanilla.
Oh,
like,
I love templates. Templates are very lucrative.
I'm sure you do, but like for us, like it's how we're selling these story sessions.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, for sure.
He's getting ready. She's getting ready. His vows, her vows. He's walking down the aisle. There's the dance, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, and that some people really love that.
Yep.
And that's what I'll say to our couples. I'm like, just let you know, like after I explain all that, I said, just let you know, like it's a reason why a lot of people don't book us, but it's a reason why a lot of people do book us as well. It's a very unique style of storytelling, and if it's for you, then let's talk, because there's not a lot of, I think there's maybe like one other videographer team that might be doing it in Michigan, but it's a really rare thing, and it excites couples when we get to talk to them about that.
And I usually add in like the whole value of it 20 years from now too. Like not only is your wedding going to be valuable 20 years from now, but like that special day, that special time that you have, and like the things you used to do 20 years ago might look different 20 years from now. So just to be able to look back on that day, that's those special moments, that's valuable too. Yeah. So.
Like that story of who you are. Like I wish I could have seen
like what we did when we were
like I wish I could have seen, I wish there were story sessions in our film. Like our wedding film was cool, but like I would love to have seen that kind of content. Like, oh, and then my grandkids, like, oh, this is what they love to do. Like they love to go bowling, or they love you know, whatever it might be.
It's really about just making people like, I think I see it similar actually to what any good filmmaker is doing, which is like when we talk about table details, I tell my guys, I say, listen, that is their personality. That's their story, right? That table detail is that girl's life dream.
Right.
Like she thought about that table detail, that dress, every part of this is her day. And it's just like, I like to think of wedding filmmaking as like a prism, right? There's so many ways to get into that angle and so many ways to look at it. And I think what you guys are doing is you know what I think is really weird is like photographers do this all the time. Like I don't know a single photographer that doesn't regularly do engagement sessions.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
You know, and it's like
There it is.
I know why from a utility standpoint. The reason is because they need to save the dates. That's the only reason.
That's true.
But I will say this: part of why they have an advantage on the day of, especially in portrait sessions, is they've already worked with this person. They already know that this person is awkward on camera. The guy, like, how many times have you worked with someone? You're like, have you kissed before?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I hate that. I'm so surprised by that every time.
But like, if you would know, like, this is how they physically like to touch. This is like the way that they like to engage each other physically, emotionally. This is what makes her laugh. Like, what do they like in an unguarded moment? Right. You have to extract that out of them, out of a high stress moment. People forget weddings are maybe not stressful in the traditional sense. Like, oh, something bad is happening, I feel stressed.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
They're awkward. They're uncomfortable. They like, especially for certain personality types. And so you're not getting the best most of the time. And I feel like, do you guys feel like having that extra time with the couple has a follow-up impact on the day of?
100,000% yes. Like everything you just said is also a selling point that we'll mention sometimes. Like, hey, just let you know, like, we don't have to worry about breaking the ice on the wedding day because it's been broken already in the story session. We're already spending that time with you. You know how we work. We know how you work. So the chemistry is already there. The trust is already there. I don't have to, and you're absolutely right. Like photographers have that one up, but like now, like me and photographers are on the same page usually when we arrive. And I'm calling them anyways all the time, like a week before the wedding. Like every photographer, every wedding, I'm always calling them and let them know, like, hey, like, how can I serve you? How can we serve each other? And here's what I experienced with the couple. What are your thoughts? You know, and like we bounce ideas off each other. And so when the day comes, it's smooth sailing as much as it possibly can be. Like, no, it's not always perfect, but it helps so much more than if we didn't do it.
Yeah. Anybody who listens to this podcast knows I'm the most pro photographer, wedding filmmaker ever. So like I'm not gonna lie. If I could choose to hang out with photographers or filmmakers, I would pick photographers. so like there's so many, like, I don't know. They're just, I think it's a cool community and they get a bad rep. So
we have a massive list of photographers that we refer, that we've had such a good time with on wedding days, and there's so many we have great relationships now that we hang out with. And
it's
so
really stunning to me how many people can't just get along with these people. I'm always like, what are you doing? Like, how are you causing these? What do you like? I do think, like, if you're lucky enough to be a top tier vendor, you don't have the same situations.
Right.
Like every once in a while, I shoot like a Boondocks wedding up in Maine. And like most people are cool, but every once in a while you'll be like, the DJ rolls in, I have to break out the RCA cables once a year, and you know, like you just realize it's like, oh, this doesn't have like a developed wedding market. Like the people I'm working with are not professionals. Like, you know, you guys are probably lucky enough. You're working with some really sick vendors, but it's interesting, you know. So I want to talk to you guys about, you know, you're married. That's that people probably have beaten that horse in terms of interviews. Like, what's it like to work with your wife? Although, definitely, if you want to talk about that, I do think that's something. But I think the thing that's interesting to me is you're married, you both work in the same company, and you have kids.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And like just Saturdays alone are a thing for you guys, right? Yeah. You know, like, how does that like work out? Like I'm lucky, not lucky. I sometimes wish I worked with my wife, but she doesn't work with me, so she's staying home on Saturday with my kids. So like, kind of like that must be challenging. And I'm sure other couples who are like doing this together, they're probably like, well, I want to have kids, or I have kids. Like, this is weird for us.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to speak on that just a little bit first, just because I feel like I deal with it a little bit more on the back end. But I know that there's people out here listening to this who, yeah, like you said, might want to start a family. They don't know how that's going to work out, or they might already have kids and they're struggling. I want to say just right off the bat, like we don't have it all figured out. This is not a perfect situation, and it's a lot of work.
And it's a 3 and a 4-year-old. That's important to mention. Toddlers is what makes
toddlers. They're not in school yet. So there's just I'm a stay-at-home mom mostly. He does most of the editing. He does all of the editing, unless we do a combo package, which we do. So I just wanted to disclaim that part, but something that I feel like we are pretty successful in talking about Saturdays, because Saturdays we obviously both have to go to the weddings and we're gone all day. Sometimes it's travel, whatever. Something that I thought of and has been working out so far is that I don't know if it's very common knowledge, but if anybody's heard of care.com, it's a nanny service online. Yeah. I'm getting in very like the specifics because
I love that. No, it's good. Go for it.
Yeah. I know I needed it when I first started. I'm like, how am I going to do that? Like we had his mom in the first year say she was going to help us and then kind of drop the ball on us. So we were really struggling a lot in our first year.
And I do think like the reason why I like that you brought it up is because it's actually a business challenge. When it has cost associated, when you know, like every time I book an event, I'm going to spend X $100 on childcare. Like you factor that into your pricing. Mm-hmm. You factor that into how your business runs. And so I would say that's great advice because if you are wanting that, you better like say you decide, oh, we're going to have kids. That better reflect somewhere in what you're selling or you're just taking a net loss.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And honestly, the weekends weren't even the hardest part. I mean, costly, yes, but the hardest part is like just the everyday between Saturday to Saturday. Because at the wedding, you come back home and my job is to get the creative juices flowing, to get these teasers out and these films done. And meanwhile, there's a 2 and a 4-year-old in the other room screaming and biting each other's heads off. And she's trying to be the mom, and I'm trying to, run the business and those parts and doing those together. We have a lot of friends who are in similar situations, at least the ages of kids or like the number of kids. And but then they'll tell us things like, oh yeah, like my parents watch them once or twice a week. And I'm like, you don't even know how good you have it. And then because I know I have parents that live 30 minutes away, but they're just so busy. They're constantly busy and they're just not always available for that to watch my kids in that capacity. And I don't blame them for that, but the fact is a
lot of people have those situations. Some people don't live near their parents.
Right. And so, but the fact is it's a hard pill to swallow when we realize we don't get to have that kind of support that a lot of our friends do. And so we paid a massive amount for childcare last year. And when it comes to taxes, it just gets complicated, even trying to get child credits and refund stuff. But I'm just letting you all out there know, you're not alone. The struggle is real and it's hard. But you got to stick with each other. And I'm speaking very specifically to the couples that are both working and both running the business, because I think it'd be easier if Courtney didn't have to do any business stuff at all. But the fact is she does still have to do business stuff. She has to be on and ready to shoot, photography, filming, whatever. She has to be present.
If I want to be in on these calls, this call specifically or the Zoom calls with our couples, we have to plan it around our kids. And so they're sleeping right now. They're having quiet time.
Yeah. And so for those of you
we'll see how long that lasts. It could literally end at any moment.
Yeah. Scout will come out of it at some point and be like, hey, is it time?
We're on borrowed time right now. Quite frankly.
Yes. Yeah. So the struggle is real, y'all. It's real. And I can tell you that if I can, again, we don't have it figured out, but if I can just continuously view each other as a team, right? Continues to see each other as team members and not bumping heads. Because another thing too is we have different parenting styles and they're just things that we struggle with, but come back to that all the time. You're in this together and you're struggling together and you're winning together and you're fighting together. You're hurdling all these obstacles together and you're not alone. And that's a blessing. That's a blessing for sure. And so anyways, all this to say, you're validated out there, whoever's listening to this.
Yeah. And I look at it that's what a wedding film is. It's the end result of what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I always think of when I'm at a wedding is I'm like, this is the beginning of a family.
Yeah.
Like a family started today. And this drove it home for me. I think I told this before on the podcast, but I only have 2 stories. So But I was like at a wedding, and it wasn't very glamorous, and it was one of those events sometimes where Jared will be like, "Hey, we can make an extra like certain K today. Do you want to do it?" And I was like, fine.
Do it.
I was like, I'll do it. It's easy. I know that I can like just sleepwalk through this one. So I show up at this wedding, and I remember like they were really nice people. So immediately I'm like, okay, this will be fun. Like the people are nice. And I could be like, what's the situation here? I'm trying to suss it out really quick. And I see this one girl, she's in the bridal party. She's way younger than everyone else. Eventually I figured out that's the groom's daughter. I think she was 16. And they're in there, she does a toast. And in the toast, she said something, and I was like, she wiped me out, man. She was like, hey, you're the best mom I could ever ask for, to the bride. And she still has her mom in her life, so she was like, hey, I love my mom too. So she wasn't disrespecting her biological mom. But like I remember thinking like, what a really, like, obviously that's not the norm that you would have a daughter that old at a wedding. But I just remember thinking like, kids are like, not every couple is going to have kids, so that's fine. But it's just, if you're struggling with your parenting as a wedding filmmaker, like you're into making family films for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's all connected. And I think you have to like always come back to that place where you're like, I love families. Like if it's all about gear for you, or it's all about money or prestige or even romance, like romance is not more transcendent than families.
That's good.
And I always have to like, for me, that's what it's all about, is like, I just want to be a part of an industry where people start families.
I love that.
I'm totally stealing that. I'm just taking that.
Take-
I'm using that. I'm not asking. I'm just gonna say. You won't know if I'm saying my discovery calls.
So good.
I'm saying that.
Because I feel like that hits us really hard. Like that's exactly why we do. It's our why too.
And it is always fun to see couples that are like pregnant.
Yeah, we have a pregnant couple.
Multiple.
Or she just had her babies.
Multiple that have kids.
So
now.
many. I have shot a lot of my planner friends' weddings.
Oh. Okay.
And so I shot their weddings, then they become wedding planners. And a lot of them have become very successful, right? And so like I'm now their partner in crime, and then they're having kids. And it's just like, if you do this right, guys, like there's so much fruit that will be, it's why to me the wedding film isn't really the thing anymore. Like for me, I'm like, I want the film to be good, but like, like I've had so many calls from couples where they're like, and this is heartbreaking, but they're like, hey, my dad passed away. Can you do X? Literally, this is the craziest thing. We had a call this year where the 3 days after the wedding, one of the groomsmen at the wedding committed suicide.
Jeez.
And the lady was like, hey, this was like, can I get some stuff? And it's just like, what you're doing is meaningful, and it kind of doesn't matter about your storytelling in some ways. Like it's always meaningful. And if you can do it artfully, all the better. If you can get paid a lot, awesome. Like, but I think like when I think about kids and my kids, I always relate it back to why am I in this profession? Like I don't know, I'm sure you guys have felt this. There are times, I told my wife the other day, I'm like, I feel really bad because I'm putting her to bed and all I want to do is get out of that room.
Yeah.
As quick as possible. And then I think like someday I'm going to be, God willing, on a dance floor with her. And all I'm going to want to be is back in that room.
Yeah. Yep. I don't look forward to that.
Okay, I don't want to cry in this episode.
I literally like, I can't do some of that daddy-daughter stuff anymore.
I know that's tough to watch now.
Yeah.
It wipes me out, but it's cool, man. It's cool. It's like kids make this job more fun. I think you make better films. I do. It's weird. All the tension that comes from it, like it's part of what makes you a better artist.
Yeah.
And
I don't know. Maybe if that's not happening for you, maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
I wouldn't be. I mean, I think I definitely. My house is never. It's never a dull moment, that's for sure. A lot of our branding, when we did the rebrand in December, like so much of it was based around that. Because when she told you about how like we were in the backyard talking about like who we are, that was like in our rebrand process. So we began it, and we were having like we got that first initial email from our graphic design team asking us questions, like picking our brains and stuff. And I was just like we at a certain point as a parent of toddlers, you do become disassociated a little bit with who you used to be. You now become this person, but like you don't even really know who that person is. And like we're right in the middle of that phase of our lives where it's like hell or high water, you know, parents of 2 toddlers. And so we're sitting there like, who are we? I don't know. But all I know is our life is chaotic. It's just constant chaos. So what does that look like from an aesthetic?
Well, and why am I willing to endure this?
Yeah.
Like, why am I willing to do this thing I often don't enjoy?
Yeah. But like, even aesthetically, because we're like, what does that look like? Like, literally from a color palette and design, like, what are we? Because if you would have seen the Pinterest board we sent our graphic design team, it was like this absolute mess of like, oh yeah, we love these movies. Oh yeah, mountains are cool. Hiking is cool. Oh yeah, it was like just like a complete collage of just randomness. It didn't make sense. And so if you look at a website, it's just kind of like, bleh. It's like the Smith is just like totally funky. And then that's when our films, that's when we just started to like look for like, let's just look for like that chaotic vibe. Let's just, because that's just our life anyway. So
how would you guys,
that's not for everyone, but
how would you guys say, like, you know, kind of to wrap this one up, because I think it was awesome, guys. I appreciate you guys. And how would you guys say, like, if you were to give this advice to filmmakers who, and I would say not exclusively to people with families, I think with people with families, by the way, just to take another rabbit trail, like the reason why families, I think, change the equation a little is they force you to do things, like I mentioned, that you don't want to do, but you do anyway. And then you have to, like, if you sit and think back, you're like, why am I doing this? And you're like, well, I would never not do it. I love doing this. Like, it's because it's my heart to do this. And, or I don't want to get it, you know, taken away by the state as like a vagrant parent or something. But, but I think like marriage is the same way. Like anything that impresses upon you a responsibility will pull different things out of you. So, but I think even if you don't have that like thing that's forcing you into a certain lane, I think like everyone has something that like inspires them that's bigger than just shoot good, make money. Right? Those are great. I care about those. Those are actually what I fall back on when I don't want to be challenged. Like I fall back on, I can shoot good and make money, like without even thinking. I can just like, right. But when I really think about, I'm not willing to die over those. Yeah. But why am I doing this? It's what I told you before, like because I believe in families. That's why I'm willing to sacrifice. And so that's my why. You talked about your why. How can other filmmakers kind of dig deeper and figure out why they are making what they make? Like, because I think that's essential, right? To making your best film.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, so quick backstory, in 2020, when we were like considering leaving my full-time job to do this, we actually were doing corporate work. And commercial jobs and videos. Weddings was not even on my mind. My mind was, I want to leave my 9 to 5 so I can do these really high-end, like really high-paying commercial jobs. Because I think I bought like this thing called Next Level Creators by Paul.
Yeah.
Honestly, freaking legit course. Yeah. He teaches some awesome stuff in it. It was great. But as I was going through that process and that course, and as I was doing these commercial jobs, and I was making really good money, but I was just like, the mentor at the time, Michael Gavin, really cool, really optimistic guy. But he was just like, I was coming to him and venting him. I'm like, I don't know. I feel weird about these commercial things. I still feel like it just doesn't feel just like there's great money, but there's something missing. And he's like, if you had all the money in the world, like what would you be doing? If money was not a factor whatsoever, what would you be doing? And that's when I referenced back to like 2015 when I shot our very first wedding together. I was like, honestly, I would shoot weddings with my wife. It was the most fun I've ever had in my life and in my marriage. and getting to tell these people's stories and like watch people cry and like make these films that move people to like and impact them in ways I never thought I could create something that does that to someone. It was an incredible feeling. But I missed that. But it's just a pipe dream because I'd have to do so many weddings. Because at that time, I thought like the max you could charge was like $2,000 for a wedding. I was so uneducated at the time. And he's like, dude, there's people that make six figures doing this. I'm like, no way. And so that's when I kind of started to pursue it. I'm not saying I pursued it for the money, but I was like, oh, it's a realistic lifestyle to actually do this full time and do what I really love to do. Because if money wasn't an issue, I would still love to do this. I would love, yeah, sure. I'd maybe shoot less weddings. I wouldn't want to do like 30 a year, but I love to do that. We love to do that. We love to tell these stories. And so I don't know, like I think that's something that people need to answer is like if money wasn't a factor. Because if you are chasing money, you will burn out super fast, even if you can raise your prices. And like, oh yeah, you're making great money, but do you love this? Like there's a lot of photographers that we've worked with in the industry, and most of the high end ones. They influential photographers and like 20,000, 30,000 followers, and a good chunk of them, not all of them, but a good chunk of them are just angry people on the wedding day. Like they're just upset and they're like stressed out. And I'm just like, and we always talk on the way home, like, what is that person doing in this industry? You're in the industry of love and joy and telling stories, and like you're just upset. And I'm like, why are you doing this?
Talk to me in 10 years.
You know what I mean? Yeah, and maybe we'll have the same thing.
Say, let's keep talking. We don't want to get to that point where like,
and if it is at that point, then it's time to stop and find a new way to make income, because like that is not a place. This is not a place to show up angry at the job.
I actually will say this, not to push back, but I will say, because I think actually that's very natural. Like to become so good at something that you no longer need to. You're so good, you don't need to bring that A game to deliver. I mean, not to be like to my own horn. I don't need to know anything about a wedding to shoot an excellent wedding, because they're all the same. I think what's important about what you said is not so much that you never do it, but that you can't keep doing it. And if you do, it's not that you can't make money or you can't make good work. It's that you won't enjoy it.
Right, exactly.
And you have to have a anchoring principle in your life to always draw you back to shore. Mm-hmm. Like the longer you do this, the harder that becomes. I will tell everyone that. Like the more money you make, the harder that becomes. The more people that are relying on you, the harder that becomes. And so the more important it becomes that you actually have that principle to come back to, which is, why am I doing this? Because when you feel like you've lost your way and you're like, what is the point of this? I had a wedding this year, which apparently is legendary in my area, because I've not even mentioned the person to people. And I've said, like, I had this one wedding and it made me cry last year, like in a negative way. And they're like, that was that wedding. Those people called me and I said, no, I'm not working with them. Like, they were that bad.
Oh, wow.
And I remember working with these people. It was like probably $20,000 of creatives there. Huge event. A planner I love her to death. She didn't do anything wrong. The couple was just hostile and evil. And really made me feel bad. Like, and I remember like having to take a moment, and I was like, why am I doing this? Like, my family's at home. I'm doing this, and these people are treating me horrible, and I hate this. I hate what I'm doing right now. This sucks. I'm not going to work with this people anymore. And, you know, obviously I come back from that. I shoot a couple good weddings, but like that was those moments will pop up in your wedding career when you do it and you are like, that was insulting, dehumanizing, not fun. Like, you start getting pictures from your wife and your kids doing something. You're like, what am I doing? Why am I at this horrible thing with these evil people?
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's really, to me, what it is like, why are you doing this? If you can't answer that, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be this magical answer.
Right.
No.
It could just be like, I like it. It's fun. Like, okay,
Or I am good at it.
I'm good at it. I like, or I have to, because if I don't, my family will starve.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a great reason. That's what I think back on is like, okay, well, I am putting a lot in retirement every year. And, you know,
Yes.
my kids are going to really be grateful for that. Like all the things that aren't the film and
Sure.
aren't the couple and aren't the day.
Right.
So
I like what you said about principle when you like just like that terminology specifically, like having those principles to fall back on is so important to like just lay that foundation now. And I mean, I guess this is another way of saying it's your why, but like that, yeah, like in those moments of, because we have faced those couples.
Yeah.
We definitely, you know, it hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows
no,
ever since the beginning. We definitely, and it wasn't like even early in the game, like where we didn't know. Even now, like this past year, there was a couple that we had that just hated their whole wedding day. They didn't like their teaser, and I don't know if they're gonna like, you know, their film is releasing soon, but like I don't know if they're gonna like that. But like, just there's some people that just like that do make it difficult. But that's also why it's like, man, niche. I will say this to people too. Like, if you want to do this, like, try to niche down and find that couple that you do like working with. And there are ways to brand yourself and communicate in ways that make sure you're attracting those kind of people. And like those calls, that's why they're so important to like to vet them and be like, hey, like this is how we work. Like this is kind of how you gotta be. And if you're not these kind of people, like here's other people I have I can refer to you, and we might not be for you, and that's okay.
yeah,
That's
clear
okay.
expectations are what it's all about. Like
Exactly.
I
Clear
tell people all the time, they go, who's your ideal couple? I'm like, well, kind of anyone, but not really. Like my actual ideal couple is anyone I can make happy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I can make you happy, I'll work with you. And so here's what I do, and I don't change it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and if that makes you happy, I don't care. Like, and I think like you got to know what you can do, and you got to know who you can make happy and who won't be happy. And if you like, we have like certain people who are like, can I have a 40-minute thing? And we're like, no, we don't do that. We can't.
Yeah.
We can't. We won't. And if you want that, you won't be happy. So maybe go somewhere else.
Yeah.
If you're not there yet, if you're not at the point where you can afford to say no to couples or like refer them to other people, just work as hard as you can to get to that point.
Mhm.
Because I think that's what we were really striving for. Like,
Yeah.
we worked a lot of low budget to like,
Yeah. We were saying yes to everyone because we had to make money. Like, okay, my 9 to 5 is gone. I got to put money, like food on the table.
I think people should say yes to everyone at the beginning.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think they should say yes to everyone. They should create the portfolio, show what they want to grow, and then they should learn why they're attracting the wrong couples. That's your fault. It's not the couple's fault. And try to, that is the journey,
Yes.
is attracting people who you can delight.
Yes.
That's tough. So, hey guys, you guys are awesome. Where can people find you? Give people a little, like, where's the gram, where's the website, all that stuff.
So you can find us. Our main spot and hub is on Instagram, thesmiths.film, really simple name. And our website is also thesmiths.film. So it's all pretty straightforward.
Streamlined.
I can't believe you guys got that. No one else called themselves that. That's awesome.
I know. It was like, well, thesmiths.com was obviously taken, and but thesmiths.film. There's just not a lot of filmmakers that are just called the Smiths, and so it's
awesome.
We almost called ourselves the Film Smiths. I'm glad we didn't go down that route.
Me too. I love the name you guys had.
Like a blacksmith, but a film smith, and like we bounced off a couple of people, and they're like, no, that's gonna go over people's heads.
It was too hard for people to say when we said like Smith.
Film?
But I do feel like there is the craftsman component to the name. And it still retains that. So I picked up on it right away. So I think it's great. So
Smart.
You guys are awesome. Appreciate you guys. If you listen to this podcast and you liked it, first of all, connect with the Smiths and tell them that they're good. Second of all, give us a 5-star review. That was very helpful to us, and it helps the algorithm. And there's a lot of podcasts, if you didn't know that exist in the world, and we are just one of them. So let people know that it's helpful to you. And we do have a sister YouTube channel. We have, of course, our main YouTube channel, Wedding Film School, where we do gear and wedding education focused. And then we have the Wedding Film School show channel on YouTube, where we well, maybe you're watching this episode now, but if you're not, you can head over there and watch our episodes on YouTube. So head over there. That's our sister channel, and we would love a subscribe and a like if we've earned it. Have a great day, guys. Thank you so much for joining us on the Wedding Film School Show.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.